Hi everybody, welcome to this podcast style video where today I want to talk to you about sabbaticals and why it is a good idea to consider taking a sabbatical. The word sabbatical, its root word is Sabbath or Shabbat, the Hebrew word for rest, and it actually originates from a biblical principle. In Genesis 2, in the creation story, where God has created the earth within 6 days, then on the seventh day, it says, by the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. Verse 3, then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. That word rest, of course, comes from Sabbath or Shabbat. And then later on, in Leviticus 25, the concept of taking a rest or taking a break is extended to the Sabbath year. I'm going to read to you from Leviticus 25. The Lord said to Moses at Mount Sinai, speak to the Israelites and say to them, when you enter the land I am going to give you, the land itself must observe a Sabbath to the Lord. For 6 years sow your fields, and for 6 years prune your vineyards and gather their crops. But in the seventh year the land is to have a year of Sabbath rest, a Sabbath to the Lord. Do not sow your fields or prune your vineyards. Do not reap what grows of itself or harvest the grapes of your untended vines. The land is to have a year of rest. And of course, I think in our society, we associate the word and the concept of the sabbatical in the realm of academia, where professors take a break from teaching and from lecturing by taking a sabbatical. And in that period of time, they usually tend to focus on conducting research and furthering research within their specific field, but some of them also travel and do other kind of things, focus on other kind of things. I've always wished that this concept of the sabbatical would be extended to all teachers and instructors and not just to professors, because anyone who is a teacher or was a teacher for a period of time will know how exhausting and emotionally taxing teaching is. It's very rewarding, but it does deplete your well, very much so. And just having that idea of every once in a while having a true rest from teaching and filling your well with new inspiration, I think it should be mandatory, really. And then, of course, there is the very famous graphic designer Stefan Sogmeister, who caused a stir when he took his first sabbatical in 2000, I believe. And he's given a TED talk on the concept of taking a sabbatical and how he has decided to now take a sabbatical every 7 years in his career. So for that 7th year, he takes off for the whole year. He doesn't work on any commissions or any commercial work, and he pursues private projects. His first sabbatical, he was in New York. His second sabbatical, he went to Bali for the year, and that actually inspired the Happy film and also the Happy Show exhibition, which was highly successful and traveled around the globe. And then his third sabbatical, he went through Mexico City, Tokyo, and Austria during the year. And that year he started a project on beauty, and that is now the inspiration for a book that is coming out soon, or it has already come out, and also a traveling museum exhibition. So it kind of touches already how Sogmeister approaches this concept of the sabbatical. It touches already on why I believe it is so important for creatives to also pursue this concept of a sabbatical and actually incorporate it as part of their practice of creating. So I took a sabbatical in 2019. I know it's just the year before COVID, but I didn't know, of course, at that time that it was going to be COVID. And I learned a lot during that year of taking that sabbatical. And I don't think I'll be able to afford to take every 7 years off the way that Sogmeister does. And I will talk to you a bit about that in a minute as well. But I do believe it has changed my perspective on my creative journey and on the goals I want to achieve creative-wise. So I thought I would maybe give you some tips on, if you consider to take a sabbatical, on how one should approach it. I've got 5 main points to focus on. The first is to really understand the concept of the sabbatical, and that is, it is a period of time that you take time off from your normal job or your normal day-to-day life, and you set it aside to focus your energy, your creative energy, your time and everything on creatively something else to hopefully let that grow. So first, you set yourself a goal. Your sabbatical needs purpose. It's not just a break. It's not just a time off. It is time off from your regular life, but it is time off to be able to focus on something specific. And that's why I say set yourself a goal. That goal could be something like, for example, learning a new skill. You could say, argument's sake, always have worked in water-based paints like watercolors and gouache, and now you want to learn how to paint in oil. It's a completely different approach. You're going to use different substrates. You're going to have different thinning materials. Your layering, etc. is going to be so different. Setting aside time to learn a new skill is a great goal to achieve. Another thing could be, we can take a tip from Sogmeister, is to pursue a specific project, a personal project, I must say, because a sabbatical is not a time that you intend to make money during that time. If money comes later out of the work that you've done, I believe it will benefit your creative career, of course, then that's great, but that shouldn't be your primary focus. So Sogmeister set himself a project. During my sabbatical year, I focused on working on my graphic novel. I have been dreaming about drawing and writing a graphic novel for years, and I have been procrastinating about it for years. And I finally begun, and then I realized, yeah, it is a really enormous project, and I struggled with my normal work and all the other responsibilities to gain the kind of momentum needed for that project. And like I said, it's an enormous project, and it doesn't have directly financial benefits because it's not a commercial project. It's very difficult to remain focused on that work. So that was my goal. My goal was to actually finish drawing that graphic novel. Then the second thing I would say is you have to limit the time period. You have to set beforehand, determine how long that period of time is going to be. You don't need to take a year. You can take a month, you can take 2 months, but you must decide in the beginning how long that sabbatical is going to last and whether or not your project is completed or you feel skilled enough if you wanted to learn a new technique or a skill, then you must resume back to your normal life, so to speak. That is very, very important. And the reason why that is so important is because it's got to do with your focus. When you've got that set period of time, then you focus solely on that project, and that will help you to speed up the whole process of what you are researching or what you're working on or what you are developing in terms of skill. And it will also alleviate stress. Because if you don't have a set period of time, then what is going to happen is you are going to start worrying about money, and you're going to start allowing other commercial projects or other bits of your normal life to creep back in to that sabbatical time. And then it's going to blur those lines really, and you're not going to experience what a true sabbatical is. So that is tantamount. The third thing I would say is, because it's a time of singular focus, and that is so rare in today's life, we're so bogged down by our routines and by all the noise that it's very special to be able to extract yourself from your daily routine and take that sabbatical. And I would say, hand in hand with that, you will experience a time of inwardness, of reevaluating your life, reevaluating what works in your life, what bothers you, what you will like to change. It circles out. It's not just creatively what works and what does not work. It actually, in my mind, is more than that. It becomes sort of emotionally, we get so busy and we're so scared sometimes of our own emotions because we're afraid that if we allow them to surface, that we won't be able to contain it, that it will really overwhelm us. And like I said, our normal lives don't allow that sort of time to sift through our feelings and to work through trauma, to work through loss, to work through disappointment, etc. Whatever it is that's actually nagging you. And a sabbatical is this great time to allow those feelings that you're so scared of, that you keep so cropped in, to allow them to surface and to allow them to heal, to blow away, to work through them and to place them in perspective. And because of that, I would say document the process. That's my third tip. Document the actual process of what you're doing. So research-wise, if we come back to that concept of the academics, if you're learning a new skill, write down how you experience it, what works, what does not work. It can become a great resource later on to revert back to when you have forgotten things or so on of what you discovered during that sabbatical time. But in tandem, also document your emotional state and how you feel. Yeah, do that. It's a great time of healing. Then I would say the fourth one is make sure that you budget for a sabbatical. The worst thing is to just take time off and not know whether or not you can actually afford it. That is why it's so important that your sabbatical is a set period of time and that you know that financially that you can actually afford to take off from your normal income during that time. Because as I mentioned, a sabbatical is not a time of commercial success. It's not a time where you roll in the money, so to speak. It's a time where you actually do the opposite. And it allows you, what's so great about it is it allows you that freedom to create without the pressure of making money. And you focus on the art that you're making, or the illustrations that you're making, or the skill that you're learning. You're focusing on the tangible things in front of you instead of all the other things that sometimes can cloud your mind when you create. We never want to talk about money, but it is important. When you know that you can afford that time off, and whether that is then a month or 3 months or a year, that you won't stress about money because you cannot afford it. Of course, if you cannot afford it, then taking an extended sabbatical is not a good idea. I would say, to sort of as a side note, many people cannot have that luxury and they see it as a luxury. I would suggest that you actually then take sabbatical afternoons or a sabbatical day where you allow that type of exploration to come in. It will also give you the same kind of relief. It won't be as intense as a sabbatical, but it is a great exercise. And it's actually an important creative practice that we all need to allow ourselves, is that time where we create without the pressure that it should mean something or that it should have any kind of value in terms of commercial value, emotional value, what other sort of, it could just be making marks on the paper, messing about, having fun, and just focus on the process more than you focus on the end result. And that's when you start to play and have fun. That's very, very important to harness that skill when you are a creative person. Then the fifth last thing I would say about a sabbatical, the tip I would give is you need to have a post-sabbatical action plan. That means you need to know after the sabbatical, work-wise, will you be able to return to your same job? So have you just taken an unpaid leave, for example, if you work for someone else, for another employer? You need to know how you're going to get back into the game, so to speak, so that you also don't stress about, oh, where am I going to find a job? And how you do that now obviously takes in different aspects. As I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, I took a sabbatical in 2019. Initially wasn't really voluntary, so that's why I was able to take a sabbatical. I was so focused on just working, and I went through retrenchments and other kind of disappointments. And instead of immediately jumping back into finding another job, I decided to take that year to make it a sabbatical. And because of the retrenchment, I had some money that I could live off. So I didn't have that immediate stress. And I also actually took a part-time job doing admin for a company, and that freed up my mind space because it was actually great that it wasn't a creative job. So I approached it that way. And I really learned a lot about myself creatively during that year. I began writing the novel, and I said to myself, I'm not going to worry about how am I going to draw this. I'm going to kind of segment it off, first write a story, and then I approach it like I'm the writer, And then later on, I'll approach it like I am now the illustrator or the visual artist who has to make this these words come alive on the page in images. So there were a lot of things in the novel that I had to draw that I've never drawn before. And some of the things I had to draw that I honestly never had any interest in, such as cars and trains. And because I had no interest, I kind of also thought I wouldn't be able to draw it somehow. I thought, it's going to look dreadful. And I really surprised myself in terms of that type of drawing skill. And I realized, oh, I can actually draw more variety of things than I thought I could. I also explored new techniques in drawing the graphic novel. And although the novel wasn't complete by the end of the year, the drawings were complete. I actually decided to add some digital coloring, some tonal value digitally once the drawings were complete. So I started to add those in 2020, and I then did that obviously when I was working again. So I've been thinking about the value of sabbaticals and why they're so important and why rest is so important. Like I said, we're living in a society that is so focused on end results. They're so focused on what you produce and being busy all the time that we sometimes forget how valuable it is to rest and take in what we have made and contemplate and determine what was successful, what was not, what new directions we want to go into, and to play, to sometimes just do things to play and not to focus so much on results. There's another very famous, well-known book by Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way, where she always talks about filling your creative well. And a sabbatical is one of the most amazing things that you can do to fill that well. I've already mentioned this, but if you're not able to take a sabbatical, do maybe think about taking a time off every week where you allow rest, where you allow yourself to creatively rest, where you can play, where you can just explore new mediums, explore new ideas, and where you don't have to finish everything, where you don't have to make everything beautiful, or don't have to make something that's going to become something, that's going to become this amazing painting that you're going to sell, or that you're going to put up in your living room wall, or that you're going to give a friend, or that's going to make you famous. Those things really are secondary. So thanks for popping in and joining me for this video. I hope it has maybe helped anyone. I will chat to you soon. Bye.